Hi, I'm Emily and this is Made on Mill. In this video I want to share with you some easy sewing DIYs you can make this Christmas. These are really easy tutorials and you can use your scrap fabrics for them. I know the holiday season is still a little bit ways away, but all of you who are handmade gift givers know that you have to start early. So I'm hoping I can give you some ideas for easy handmade gifts that you can make this season that perhaps even if you got started in late November or December, you'd still be able to finish before you're giving it fabrics for them. The first project I have for you is a Christmas stocking. And you can make this using your scrap fabrics. I had some leftover fabrics from some quilting projects and I decided to use those to make stockings. I think these are a great way to package up a gift. You could put your gift inside the stocking and then gift it to someone, and then they have a stocking that they can then repurpose for gift packaging or perhaps use as Christmas decor. So for the shape of the stocking, I simply took an existing stocking that I had and kind of traced it out and angled the foot a little more slanted. But generally I was happy with the shape of the stocking, and then I just used this template going forward. I shared a little bit about how I made this in my crafty sewing vlog that I did earlier this month, and I'll link that below. For the most part, I just used my template to cut out my fabric pieces, sewed the stocking together with right sides facing. I used bias binding to cover up the seams, and then I added the brim or the piece that folds over along with a looped portion where the stocking can then be hung up. My second project is these Christmas cards, and they don't necessarily need to be tailored to Christmas. They could be just greeting cards or blank cards that you use for any occasion. I made a lot of these last year for my Christmas market and they were very popular. The designs I did were mushrooms, wreaths, and then Christmas trees. This year I have cut out a lot of mushroom shapes and I'm using scrap fabric to cut out those mushroom shapes and then simply stitching them down on some cardstock. Thankfully, I found this cardstock at a thrift store a couple of years ago. It came with envelopes. I thought this was a great find. You could create your own cards using cardstock and then cutting out a scalloped edge if you wanted to have that design, or you could just leave them square. The next project I'm working on is these quilt block sweaters. Again, this is a scrap busting project, so if you have any scrap fabrics, you just really need to pick a few that coordinate well together. I was able to find a lot of my fabrics at a thrift store. I guess someone was clearing out their quilting stash and I found a few fat quarters. And luckily, most of them were already paired up in terms of color. Again, I shared a little bit of this project in my crafty sewing vlog I did in October. But here's a more in-depth way of how I'm going about creating those. So first, you'll need to decide what quilt block pattern you want. There's so many available online. You could buy a pattern, you could watch a tutorial. It's really up to you how big or how small they are. In terms of attaching them to the sweater, I'm just picking places on the sweater that I want to attach them, kind of figuring out scale and shape and size that I like, and then going ahead and stitching that down. Now these sweaters I found at the thrift store as well, so it's a great place to look for them at an affordable price. And then because they are a little bit stretchy, but I'm adding cotton quilting blocks to them, I wanted to be conscious of that. I'm using the lightning bolt stitch to stitch down the quilting blocks onto the sweaters because they are a little bit stretchy, and this stitch will accommodate for that. I use some scrap quilting batting on the reverse side of the quilt blocks, and then I stitch the quilt blocks down to that, creating that quilted look. But I've seen these for a few years, they're quite popular. I thought that they would be a great gift idea to dress up a sweater and add that handmade touch. For those of you who are new to my channel, or this is perhaps the first video you're seeing of mine, thanks for stopping by and spending your time here. On my channel, I focus primarily on sewing and crochet tutorials. I might start doing a little bit of vlog content as well. I really like to focus on sustainable crafting or environmentally considerate crafting. And so what that means is I try to source all my material sustainably. So whether that be using up scraps as much as I can, creating as little waste as possible, or finding materials secondhand. When I can't find material for my crafts secondhand, then I will try to do my best to ensure it is from a sustainable and ethically sourced supplier. If this kind of content interests you, I would love if you would stick around and consider subscribing. If you have ideas or suggestions on the type of content you would like to see, please leave a comment below, and I'll definitely consider these for future videos. For the past couple of years, I have been creating toiletry bags out of placemats that I find at the thrift store. It's really easy to find these quilted placemats at thrift stores. I remember my grandma had them when I was a kid. I think they're very reminiscent of the 80s and 90s. A lot of people, I guess, are donating them, but they make excellent toiletry bags and they only take 10 minutes to make. So all I do is I cut a slit in the horizontally in the center of the placemat, where I then add the zipper, and then I simply fold the placemat in half with wrong sides together and stitch around the outside. There's really no raw edges for you to finish, and this looks like a very cute cottagecore toiletry bag, but really it was just an upcycled placemat, and I think this is a very affordable way to give a handmade gift. I have a full video tutorial on YouTube for how to make these. In that video though, I cut the placemat completely in half. I no longer do that. I just simply cut a slit across the center, but I don't cut all the way to the edges. And then I tuck the zipper into that slit. And then that way I don't have any raw edges on the sides of the placemats to finish. The final sewing project that I have for you today is DIY cloth napkins. You could get completely creative with these. So you could either use a single fabric for all of them, or you could choose different fabrics and then create a complementary set of napkins that coordinate but don't necessarily match. For this project, I just suggest that you use a cotton fiber type, and you'll want to research what size you want your final napkins to be. You could do a cocktail size or a dinner napkin size. It's really up to you. I think these make a great gift idea. Perhaps if you have someone on your list this year that you aren't super familiar with, you're getting them a gift, I think this is a great option. This also makes a great host or hostess gift as well. There's a few ways you can do these napkins. So you could add bias tape to the edge, which I have done in my tutorial that I will link. And in other cases, you could do a method where you simply fold over the raw edge twice and sew that down. You could square off your corners, or you could do mitered corners as well. There's tons of tutorials on YouTube for how to create these. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope I gave you some good ideas of how to use up your leftover fabric, your thrifted fabric, or perhaps any scraps that you might have laying around, and create some handmade gifts this season. If you have other handmade gift ideas that you love giving or you've given in the past and people have loved them, please leave a comment below. I love hearing what other people are working on. I love giving handmade gifts, and I always think it's interesting to see what other people are giving and working on as well. If you enjoyed this video or found it helpful, I would love if you could give it a like, subscribe, or leave a comment. Have a great day.